All right. So Freddie Leiba, welcome to the Marist College Department of Fashion, Design and Merchandising. This is our Saturday series. And
Yes.
students, I just want to tell you, first of all, Freddie is one of my good friends, but also a legend and an icon, and has been such an inspiration for me. So welcome, Freddie, to our...
Welcome. But you have to remember that when I met you, you were a student.
I was. It's very
You
true.
were interning at Shamask.
Yes, I was
So that's
interning.
why I met you.
It was my first internship,
Of
and
course. So I met you then.
and I came into work. You guys were getting ready for the fashion show,
Yes.
and I'd never seen anything like it before. I'd never really had that experience of watching a designer and an editor and a stylist working together to create looks, and
Well, also, it was a good time, John, because, the thing is, you've been a designer, and you did you had beautiful shows, and but what it is that when you work with a designer, is you have to respect what they're doing and trying to achieve. It's not about you. It's about me working as a team so they can realize their point of view.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I met that, but I didn't know anything about that when I started, because I was a teenager when I lived in England.
Yeah. So where were you born, Freddie?
I was born in Trinidad, which was British.
Yes.
But then I went to England when most people from the Caribbean who were British, that was a normal thing.
Yeah.
However, when I got to England, I wanted to be a designer. And I actually went to the Royal College of Art for a brief moment, but then I was introduced to Gerald McCann. Gerald McCann was a couture designer who used to do things for not the evening gowns, but the day clothing for Her Royal Aunt, for Queen Elizabeth and Princess Margaret.
Wow.
And I was there as an apprentice, like when you were, Shaman.
Yeah.
But this was a whole different time. This was dealing with those type of ladies, which is a whole different protocol.
Yes.
But I was terrible at my job. I have to be honest. And I think what they did, he kind of had me there because all of those ladies thought I was interesting and charming or whatever it was. And in those days, I used to dress very avant-garde in those days. Before I went to England, I lived a short while in New York. And I bought a lot of Stephen Burrows, made clothes for me. So I arrived in London in the 60s, with all leather trousers and all these Banlon colorful shirts.
Yes.
And that's why, so King's Road was it was happening then. But they had never seen, it was all cool, but it was totally different. It was a little bit more colorful. So when I started working with Gerald McCann, and he realized that I need to be somewhere else, he said, Freddie, you need to go somewhere else. This is not for you. So technically he fired me in a nice way, and I ended up on King's Road. Mm. A friend of mine who was working on King's Road was like a fashion show.
Yeah.
All of the models, all of the designers were coming through King's Road. And I worked for a place called Jean Machine, where they would take American jeans and funk it up.
Yeah.
And all the pop stars, Mick Jagger, the Beatles, everyone came in there to buy jeans. Mm-hmm. So I was meeting all these incredible people. In the meantime, on King's Road, there was an incredible shop next door to me, to the place I worked. And it was Antiquarius, where it was the beginning of, there was a woman called, who had the most incredible vintage clothing. And Tina Chow, Grace Coddington, this is Grace Coddington before Vogue. All of these incredible women would go there and buy all these Fortunis and these amazing clothing.
Right.
And in the back of the store was Susan Bartsch, who was a young girl in those days, had a funky vintage shop. And Vivienne Westwood then opened her store right across from where I worked.
Yeah.
And that's when we saw all of the Vivienne Westwood, all the safety pins,
Yes.
and the punk. And it was a little before punk. Then it's all the sort of bohemian kind of look was happening. Bieber had just opened, so there was a new romantics look happening through Bieber. Ossie Clark was just started. Manola Blahnik just started opening his shop, and this is all off King's Road.
Wow.
Then it was a lot of fun working there.
I bet.
And my job, because I knew a bit about sewing, I used to alter the jeans downstairs in the boutique for the customers. So I'd turn the hems up, or take in the jeans. And that was my job. And anyway, whilst working there, you probably remember Robert Forrest, right?
Yeah, of course.
So Robert was working for Browns of London.
Okay.
And I was a customer. I used to go into Browns, save all my money up to go and buy Ken's or whatever Browns had.
Yeah.
Anyway, Browns was a store when I got there who had discovered Karl Lagerfeld before he had a collection. He would come in with himself and showing Mrs. Burstein what he made. Versace was working for Callaghan in Italy. He didn't have his name yet. Giorgio Armani was working for Cerruti in Paris. So all these young designers were coming in. There was Walter Albini, who is dead now, Italian. So all of these people were coming to show Mrs. Burstein their collection. So she discovered all of them.
Wow.
And also, so I was visualizing, I was there in the presence of all this wonderful situation that was happening. Sonia Rykiel, Missoni, she discovered all of those designers.
And Galliano in his day, too.
Galliano was going to school.
Yeah.
This is later on. And
Yeah.
she took him out of school and Galliano and also Alexander McQueen.
Yeah.
She discovered them from school and gave them windows and Browns. But this is a little later on,
Yes,
because
okay.
I had already moved to it. My time was really the beginning. And so that was what happened and how I ended up in New York. Being young and I was basically going to clubs in the evening and what I was supposed to do, because I wasn't born in London, although I had what I was supposed to do is every 6 months go and get a stamp in Croydon in England, which that 6 o'clock in the morning I'm coming in from a club, so no way I'm going to go to Croydon. So my mother wanted me to come and visit. My mother was second marriage to an American, and she wanted me to come and visit her. In the meantime, how I got my career started in America was Mark Bartlett Andy Warhol had just started Interview magazine.
Yeah.
And Mark Bartlett, who is still a dear friend of mine, was going to school in Rome. But then he got the job for Interview magazine. So I met him in London. He would come to London for his weekends. And when I came, then I was deported to America. And when I came here, I didn't have a job. I had a whole life in England.
Yeah.
I was living with my mother in Queens, going from one extreme to another.
Yes.
Anyway, Mark Bartlett said, well, why don't you come and work for us? And I said, work for you, what can I do? He said, you can dress them. I said, dress them? I thought they dressed themselves. I had no idea what. But here I am working with, all of the Andy Warhol. I think Jodie Foster was 16 then. She had just done Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
So I did dressed her for pictures. And this unfolded. This whole life. And then the photographers started asking me to help them, which was Albert Watson. And I started doing covers for French Vogue. This is all freelance. And Italian Vogue, and then Irving Penn got hold of me.
Wow.
And because Irving Penn's agent was the same as Albert Watson's agent. And his agent said he should meet me. And then I had this whole long term working with Penn and in most of the advertising of Irving Penn. He was doing Clinique and L'Oreal and all this. So I did those for years. And then I realized this is something more than what I actually loved. Anna Wintour had just moved to New York, and she was working for New York Magazine.
Yes.
And what she did for New York Magazine was she was making, doing stories on what was Basquiat was starting, and all of these people and she was doing art and whatever was happening. And she decided to do a story on stylists. I had no idea what a stylist was, because in Europe, a stylist is called, a design is called a stylist.
Exactly.
But I didn't know what it was. So she had a meeting with me, and Calvin Klein had just started his career also too. And she gave this, the project was, she would give 5 different now stylists the same outfit, and we would do something that we thought is appropriate.
Oh, I love that.
Make a story of it.
Project.
So the white suit went to myself. It went to Tony Goodman from Vogue. But this is before Vogue, incidentally. Yeah. Tony was a freelance person. They were very kind to me. Wendy Goodman and Keeble Cavaco it went to, which Keisha was alive then. And 2 other stylists, I can't remember the names. However, the story that she did, and I can choose the makeup artist and the hair and do whatever I want to do with this white suit of Calvin Klein. The thing is that she opened the spread with my picture. And I did a very kind of camp over-the-top picture.
Yeah.
And she opened the spread with me, and then I realized I had a career.
Wow.
When all of that started happening, Harper's Bazaar so this is back now in the 80s. Harper's Bazaar contacted me. And then I became the fashion director of Harper's Bazaar. And then in the 1990s, Condé Nast decided to do Allure magazine. And Anna approached me because she then started Vogue. She was at Vogue while I was at Pitt. And she observed what I was doing at Harper's Bazaar. And she offered me the job to come aboard and do Allure magazine. Well, John, when I got there, I realized I made the wrong move, because it was totally being controlled. I didn't have the freedom of the photographers, because the photographers I was working with were contracted to Vogue, so I couldn't work with them.
Exactly.
So then I realized I did something not right. I was at that time very kind of not wanting what to do. And I at that time was supposed to be flying to Europe for the collections on behalf of the magazine. And on my way there, I don't know if you know Anthony Clavé.
No.
Anthony Clavé is the man who did David Bowie's makeup.
Okay.
Not after he did the
Ziggy.
Ziggy startup. The guy who did the makeup was English. He died. And Anthony took over David Bowie. Anthony used to stay with me in my apartment on Central Park West. And Anthony got sick. And he flew to Biarritz to get a healing, a spiritual healing. And between dealing with what he was going through and what I was going through, I decided, you know something? Instead of flying to Paris, I flew straight to Biarritz, and I didn't go to the collections. And when I got there, I found him dead. Mm. So I had to make all the arrangements. His family was in Canada and Europe and made all the arrangements. And that was that. And then I came back to New York after all of that. And I gave my notice in to Condé Nast. And then I went freelance to this day. And this is what I do now. The good thing about all of this stuff that what I have learned is you've got to be true to yourself, and you got to have, I'm not a political person getting over that. I just love to be creative. I love, I'm not involved with the politics of it or thing, and I want to be true to myself. I got to sleep well at night with a good conscience.
Yes.
So I went back to doing freelance work, and which I still do. In the meantime, what I may fail to tell you, which I still do, is that when I came back to New York, one of the people who were very supportive about me was Norma Kamali. And she introduced me to Studio 54 was happening in New York back in that time. And of course, I was involved with Andy Warhol and all of that. So I was going to the club every night, and in New York. And when after the Studio 54 finished, you would be there. Actually, you would know part of this because when Ian Schrager and they started their hotel, the boutique hotels, the Morgan Hotel, they asked me to. They had hired Giorgio Armani because Andre Putman did the interiors of it.
Exactly.
Then they decided to change the uniforms. So they got rid of the Giorgio Armani clothes and they used me. And you were there at the time because I pulled the clothes from Rona Shamask and they were styled in Shamask, in the gray suits. And to this day, I'm still working with Ian with his hotels all over the world, because I did the Paramount, the Royalton, and all of those. Right. And then he sold all of those, and now he has a brand of hotel called the Editions Hotel and the Public downtown. So I still do that to this day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions for you. So getting back to, talking about hotels. So how is it, like, what is your approach to design when you're thinking about, because it's a lot of different types of people, right, that are working in the hotel?
Yes. But what I design, what I do design, I look at the rendering of the hotel, the interior first, and I look at all the categories of their positions, from the managers to the busboys to everyone in the hotel. Yeah. But Ian wanted to have a very fashiony aesthetic towards it, so that's where the inspiration comes from. It comes from the hotel, the interiors themselves, and I suit the uniforms to that, and the activity, and the climate of the geography of where these hotels are.
Exactly. Right. So you have to work with the way.
It's old-fashioned common sense, John.
Yeah. And so, how did you, like, when you first started to work in the industry? So you were working in the jeans store, and did you learn to sew just growing up? Is it something that you...
My mother was a seamstress in Trinidad.
Wow.
My mother was a seamstress, and she would make clothing. So I didn't have the discipline to be a designer, but I knew how to sew. I can sew. I can do a hem or something simple, or taking a pair of jeans.
Right.
So that was something I did. I was, besides being upstairs selling the jeans, I'd run downstairs and do the alterations to the customer.
Well, something that I tell my students all the time, and I think it's so important. I always recommend that anybody that wants to work in fashion, whether you're a designer, a merchandiser, want to be a stylist or an editor, it's so important to work in a store, to work in retail, because you get to see how the transaction works between somebody coming in, looking at something, how does it fit? You get to meet the real person and see how it really happens in real life.
Absolutely. And one thing for your student, they must realize that one thing you have to have, besides an education, manners. And some kind of a respect for people and dealing with people. But manners, because when I, as a young boy, and I had to go and meet all these people, like my first meeting with Irving Penn, and Horst, who I worked with for years. And I went in there, and thank God, and you know how to say good morning and thank you, and an old-fashioned written note to someone saying thank you for, So, to this day, I don't depend on the phone anymore to write.
Yes.
I think I still write. There's nothing more. I still appreciate when someone send me a note, and of course I use the text.
Yeah, of course.
Thing, but it's so nice now and then just to do that. But just being polite and being considerate and being curious and being you ask questions.
Yeah.
And I mean, John, I also speak to some of the students. I get invited to Parsons in the new school, and I go there and I get into the class and they show my work on a screen. And then I have a Q&A after. And a very funny thing that most of the students do, how do I become famous? I said, you never think about that.
Yeah.
Do your work, and if you do your work well, you'll be compensated for it. But don't go into a job, only sadly because on the thing they're saying, I don't know, the Kardashians and all these people who are showing off. I said, no. You do the work, you do it well, and you become a professional. And if you get it, you get the respect, and it's simple as that. But don't go into a job looking to be famous. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of famous people, but I'm not famous. And if I don't do my job correctly, I'll be fired like anyone else.
Yes, exactly. I think that's such great advice. The idea of being humble, do whatever is in front of you. Somebody always said to me, ski what's in front of you, like the idea of skiing. Just do what's in front of you, show up, have good manners, have a good handshake when we used to be able to shake hands.
Of course.
But just to be curious and to the idea of finding a mentor. And that I found I had some amazing mentors in my day. And that's,
we all have,
they helped.
Absolutely, yeah. And ask questions and read.
Yes.
Reading is important. Know history.
Yes.
Sometimes I have to have conversations, and they have no idea who Marie Antoinette was, or anything that you got to know. Because in fashion, you have to study the history of fashion.
Yes.
It goes back to the 18th century, and you have to know who Christian Dior was. It's not John Galliano,
right?
You know what I mean? So.
I'm teaching a course called The History of Modern Fashion, and it begins in 1850. And I do believe that for anybody, again, if you're going to work in design, if you're going to work in the showroom, merchandising, planning, whatever it is, it's so important to have those reference points.
Of course. Because
then you can also see how things come and go and why this certain thing is happening in this particular moment.
There's a wonderful, for your students, should they come to New York, there is a really fabulous exhibition that I went to preview yesterday on time.
Oh, at the Metropolitan?
It is excellent, about time then and time now, where they have the old Christian Dior, the new look, and the people who have been inspired by designers inspired today. It's done by Andrew Bolton, who does the Met Ball.
Yes.
But it's a brilliant, brilliant exhibition.
Okay. When is that opening? Do you know?
Soon, well, I went to the preview. It should be opening. I have no idea when the museum is opening to the public.
Okay, but fairly soon.
It was a private thing I went to preview it yesterday. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So, Freddie, I've got some questions that some of the students gave to me. So, if somebody wanted to become a stylist,
yes,
how does one even begin? And I know there's many different ways, but how would you recommend somebody who is interested in being a stylist?
Becoming an assistant to a stylist.
Yeah.
You learn, just because all of my assistants came through and they went off on their own. Yeah, look, I'll give you an example. When I was at InStyle, which is timing, I had an assistant who I took along with me when I left InStyle, and now she's working for InStyle magazine. But she was my assistant, so become an assistant.
Yeah. No, and again, I mean, whether you want to be, I think in any creative field, a photographer, designer, you learn. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And then how about, how do you see, this is another question from the students, the world of magazine and publishing has changed.
It has.
But how do you see, where do you see it headed?
Well, the thing is, like how we are having a conversation now, this is a big change for us, right?
Yes.
You would come to visit me, or I would come and visit you. But what changes are good. I look at it. This is a wonderful experience, John. You've got, but I can speak to you like you're sitting in my living room. I'm sitting in your class. But a change is good. I welcome it. I mean, I miss the human thing. The magazines, I still like paper. I still buy magazines. but I also look on what's going on online or whatever it is, because that's a new thing. So, although I'm very traditional what I do, but I still want to be, I'm still involved with the world today, and we have to move on. So, I accept looking at actually the Instagram has saved me, because I'm in the process of doing a book.
Yes.
And I have to go through thousands of tear sheets. And I forgot half of the stuff I've done, because in the old days, you didn't get credits and all of that.
Right.
So as I post a picture, I would get maybe the model getting, I did that picture with you, or the hair and makeup, and all.
Right.
Or the photographer that, most of them I remember, but some of them I didn't. So it is refreshing my mind and giving me a lot of help. So I welcome both.
Good for you. Now, you have dressed many famous actresses among other celebrities. And I know that Elizabeth Hurley is one of your good friends who you've dressed.
Yeah.
Are there any particular actresses that have really inspired you, that you've had wonderful collaborations with?
I did. I had a wonderful, who I used to dress Meryl Streep, and she was a fabulous lady to dress, There's a famous picture of her wearing the American flag dress, Catherine Monaghan. Well, it was when Obama was going into politics. No, it's around the Obama time, and she was rooting for that, and she was promoting Mamma Mia.
Yes.
And she was promoting Mamma Mia in Europe, and I said, Meryl, this could be a good dress. Without saying the words, you'll just wear it.
Yeah.
And she wore the dress all through her, all the premieres of Mamma Mia in Sweden and in England. So, there's some of them I enjoy doing. I've dressed, another person who I've dressed I had a wonderful relationship with is Janet Jackson.
Yes.
And, but I don't, I really don't go after celebrity. I mean, if they come to me, I really love the magazine and pictures.
Yes.
And it's dressing the actresses, only if I develop a relationship with them, it's fine. But for me to go out seeking that world, it's not for me. Right. It's too much. It's not easy. And, the thing is, because they're not models, so it's a very specific thing. And also, they're usually promoting a movie, and they have very specific needs. But it's not, I'd rather a young or someone who, I'd rather make a story out of them. So
exactly.
It's not that I don't, but I just feel comfortable more in the fashion world rather being in the, although I've done InStyle, I was working with them, but it was actually for a magazine.
Exactly. So
and then I would meet them at the magazine, they'd ask me to dress them.
Right.
So I got involved with Elizabeth through because of my relationship with Estee Lauder, with Irving Penn back in the day, and when Elizabeth got the contract, when she wore the famous safety pin dress,
yes, exactly,
with Versace, they put me as her stylist for Estee Lauder. And we developed a relationship. And then when she did Austin Powers,
yes,
I did her costumes for that.
Oh, wonderful.
I get credited at the end of the movie, but because I wasn't part of the union, they didn't give me the big credit, but I was credited. Right. So I did Austin Powers, Bedazzled I did with her as a movie, But I did this just for her, I mean, not because I wanted to be part of the movie.
Exactly. So you prefer the idea, and I understand this, you want to create
I like making stories. I like making stories.
And you like the collaboration with the photographer and the set design.
Yeah, and developing a story.
Yes, I understand.
Not just dressing them
Right.
I prefer making a story with the models or.
I understand that, and for me as a designer, I love to tell the story.
Yeah,
and it's not about you look at somebody like Giorgio Armani. I just spoke about him. His work is very much about. It's very sort of abstract and minimal. It's very much about the form. But then you look at somebody like Galliano, who's loved to tell a story, and I like that idea too. I like a narrative. I like kind of like what's the background of this, and
well, yes, But I would sometimes, the thing is, I have the challenge with all of these things that makes it interesting is that, for instance, when you work for a magazine, what makes a magazine work is the advertising that goes into the magazine. So you get the big people like Armani and all the big names who advertise them, because without them, you wouldn't have no magazine at all.
Exactly.
So you have to find ways in making a story in the editorial using Armani, which is very simple, minimal clothing.
Beautiful. Yes.
Calvin Klein was the same, and they were very minimalist, very modern.
Yes.
But then you can go and do a fantasy with John Galliano, or you know what I mean. So, but you create stories with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was working with Ronaldo, so Shima, we took the clothes to Mexico and did stories. Yeah. And he was very minimalist.
Yes, exactly. But of the setting and the lights and the whole.
Of course, and we chose the girls, and yeah. So it's about, to me, everything. You have to make everything interesting.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like a piece of white paper. The drawing that you do becomes the thing, but you need a piece of white paper.
Right, exactly. So what do you think about, like, what are you interested in now fashion-wise? Like, what are you seeing out in the world or on the show?
Well, I find I'm taking this opportunity now because of what we're going through, where there's a lot of things we cannot do.
Yes.
But especially speaking to students, which is difficult for them because they can't be free and going out and with their friends and getting inspired and all that. But I just say, something, read. Take this time to study fashion. Take this time to be creative. Christian Dior became Christian Dior after there was an epidemic of World War II. The new look came out of World War II.
Yes, exactly.
Marie Antoinette came out from the Black Plague in Europe in the 16th century.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so take this time and make it, don't be negative about it. Use the time and study. And if you want to be a chef, make recipes up now. You know what I mean? Whatever it is you do. Just take this time and be useful with your time.
I agree with you. It's like it's all about going inside and researching.
Researching, absolutely.
I agree with you very much so. And
if you can't get to a book, get on the internet. You know what I mean?
There's so much. I agree. And I do believe that this pandemic, like many things, will bring us into a very creative.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because everything that we were used to has changed.
Yes, but one has to be hopeful. But be hopeful.
Yes. Oh,
because
absolutely.
Change. You have to be hopeful. We have to, what the thing about this is going through. If I have to look at this in what one can get out of it is a positive thing. This world of showing off, which you see on the internet with people doing, is going to equalize people a bit because that disease that is happening, it has no prejudices. If you happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, it can reach you. It reached the White House. I mean, where there are a million precautions there. So now is the time to be very compassionate about what's going on, be sensitive about what's going on, be creative, don't waste your time, and really and truly just be compassionate about some people don't have food to eat. You know what I mean?
No, it's
I look out my window and there's a lot of poverty there,
Yeah.
Just be thankful.
Yeah. No,
and be grateful and be, we use this time to educate yourself in a spiritual way, whatever you believe in, and then be sensitive about what is going on in the universe, and also be creative at the same time and be motivated.
Yes. Now, one of the wonderful things that I've been experiencing from the students, they're very interested in gender identity, body positivity, modesty, like the movement of the modesty movement. I think it's really interesting. Sustainability, all of these things, diversity, inclusion. And it's been interesting to see how these students are really forming their ideas about where they want to go in their careers through the lens of something that's much more socially conscious that I think that I was certainly brought into the fashion world with.
Yes. Well, I know you have been very, very protective about animals and
Yes.
that. You've been for a long time. Well, the thing is, what I have done is that, you've got to give back because we're very lucky. I did a book, I don't know if you've seen it. It was done, all of the proceeds of the book went to Concerned World, which is a big organization in Europe, but the money goes into Africa and all the third world countries for poverty. And the book was about diversity. And so I did this book. I'll just get the book and I'll show it to you.
Oh, yes, please.
Is the book of diversity there, please? The big book? Right, the book, yeah. Sorry, John. I just want to show them the book.
Yes.
So this is the book.
Oh, I love
it's called Diversity.
Oh.
So it was done by a photographer who is very like you, very conscious about furs and all of the things. Yeah. And he asked me to help him with this book because the book was about women, but all different types of women. That's why Lupita is on the cover. But it was about old, elder ladies, old, young ladies, different ethnic backgrounds of ladies, ladies who had handicaps.
Yes.
They were celebrating all these. And one of my favorite pictures, if you pardon me for a minute.
Yeah, please take your time.
One of my favorite pictures was about this. Sorry, John.
No.
About this girl.
Oh, yeah. Can you pull it? Yeah. Can we see the legs? Yeah.
So she's a young girl from Los Angeles, and she came into the shoot hiding herself. And I said, you know something? You're a beautiful girl. Unfortunately, this happened to you. But there's a lot of girls who are going through worse than what you have been through. I want you to celebrate that play. Mm. So I said, there's a famous movie with Sharon Tate, sitting on a chair in a certain way. And I said, you're blonde, I said, you could be a young Sharon Tate.
Yeah.
Could be it. So I put in my white shirt and I had her show the leg off, So it was a wonderful, wonderful project. But all of the proceeds went to, and then I did, this girl from Africa.
Gorgeous.
So anyway, talking about what you do is that when you get in a position where you can do things to help people, fashion, you got to think of that we're very privileged.
Yes, we
for
are.
What we can do.
Yes.
So you've got to find ways in giving back. And I don't know if you remember when the AIDS thing, which we all were scared about because it was like mysterious disease that it was. We found out later on what it was. But I designed the AIDS ribbon plate. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, of course.
And the reason why I did that was so this was back in the 80s when this AIDS thing was a mystery.
Yeah.
And I went to one of these fashion dinners at one of the fancy hotels in Manhattan, and they would give you a white starter plate. But you remember you came to my place on Central Parkway,
yes,
right?
I did.
Well,
yeah.
Rock Hudson used to live next door, in the building next door to me.
Oh, you're kidding.
And his New York apartment was there.
Yeah.
He lived, of course, in Hollywood. And I would see this incredible looking man. I would see him in the coffee shop that I used to go to. And that man who was this thing was not looking like what he used to look like in the movies. Yes. And he was late. Elizabeth Taylor went on to the Vanity Fair cover at that time and appeared in Vanity Fair with a red ribbon pinked on a pink dress. And I went to this dinner, around all of that was happening. I had friends who I was visiting. Actually, the fashion director of Interview magazine, he died of AIDS, and I was there at his bedside. And it was this mysterious thing. All my friends were going to all of this.
Yes.
Anyway, when I went to this dinner, they would give you a red ribbon to pin on your on a tuxedo or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
So I got there, and then there was a start. So we were all sitting at a table, and the woman who was sitting next to me, I didn't know. I introduced myself to her, and she said her name was Nan Swid. And she asked me what I did. I said I worked for Harper's Bazaar, and she said she designed dinnerware for celebrities like Richard Meyer and all these different people. And I innocently took the red ribbon off my thing and just not thinking about it, thinking about what the speech we were hearing and all my friends that I was losing. And I took the red ribbon and I just placed it on the white starter plate. Mm. And then she's telling me what she was doing. And I said to her, not thinking I'd be involved, I said, you should be doing this. Look what we're listening to here. Oh, she said, no. No one would buy something that has to do with death or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So I said, I just feel it could be done. Anyway, we changed the conversation. I left the dinner. She asked me for my information. I was called the next day, and her office was near the D&D building. Well, the D&D building by Bloomingdale's.
Yes.
So I went to visit, and she said, something, I was thinking of what you told me. And I think, let's try it. So she gave me a white plate, and I took a red magic marker, and I drew the ribbon, and it became the gift of the year.
Wow.
So all the designers like Calvin and Donna, they all became their corporate gift.
Yes.
I did a white plate and the mug. And I didn't take no money from it. I didn't want any money. All the proceeds went to DIFA, because DIFA is the one we started. So, what I want, what is something that we can't forget? Fashion is a wonderful fantasy, and we all love it, and we all love the romance of it. But you have to remember try to do what you can do to be useful with whatever you can do.
It's all about being of service and
being of service. And if you're in a position to do something, it's not about you glorifying yourself and all of that thing.
Yeah.
Try to be helpful. I come from a very simple background. I come from the Caribbean. I had the fortune to go to England, but I haven't forgotten what my mother went through to put me through all of what I've accomplished. So it is, don't be mindful.
Yes.
That's my words.
I think it's beautiful. And I do think that the fashion industry has been very instrumental in helping with the AIDS crisis, with breast cancer.
Yeah, of course.
They get behind things with the pandemic. They started the Common Thread. They raised all of this money.
Of course, yeah.
So it's an amazing thing, because a lot of times we think about fashion as this, it's for beautiful people. There's a superficiality about it.
Of course, yeah.
But deep down, like yourself, there's a real heart to it.
There's a whole heart to it. You see, I understand fashion. It makes people, and everyone, whether you're rich, poor, or indifferent, it helps people. You know what I mean? It gives them an identity. It gives them a sense of getting up in the morning and dressing up.
Yeah.
It gives them, you see it. I get inspired by the street.
Always.
Of people who put things on and.
Absolutely. That's the great thing of New York.
Yeah, so it helps people, but you have to be mindful about the two platforms you have. You know what I mean? Just use the platform to help,
exactly,
or to contribute, but also use that platform to be creative at the same time.
Yes. Now, any final words for our students who might be entering the workforce in the next year or so?
Well, the words are: don't give up, be creative, be mindful, don't give up.
Yeah.
Take all of this downtime, if it's downtime or any time that's confusing, and read and empower yourself with everything you can do to help your career. You know, it's not, besides going to school and being in a class, take it at home and be creative.
Yeah.
If you're sewing, sew more. Sew buttons. So just be mindful about it.
Yeah.
And it don't matter if it's fashion or anything. What if you want to be a builder, whatever you do, make time and experiment now.
Always.
You know, so you're never too old for it, you're never too young for it. Just be curious and be mindful and be grateful that you are in school.
Exactly, Freddie.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Now, where do we find you on Instagram?
Oh, my name, Freddie Leiba, Gmail. No, I have an Instagram, Freddie Leiba.
Freddie Leiba.
Yeah.
And
what you're going to be seeing a lot of my work on it because of the book.
Yeah.
Not because I'm showing off, but it's the book.
And you're working on the book of your work.
Of my work, yes. Yeah. And hopefully the proceeds of that will go to a charity.
Beautiful.
That's the goal.
You're my idol.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Anyway,
really.
John, thank you for inviting me here.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
To, maybe one day I can come to visit your school.
I'd love for you to come up, take the train up to Poughkeepsie, come visit us once we're allowed to have people join us.
Yeah,
but
because I've done it to a few schools. I did it to a few schools. I did one in Virginia.
Yeah.
Actually, they were museums, but I did a museum talk in Virginia,
right?
Because they had a exhibition of Napoleon.
Oh wow!
But the reason why they invited me, because if you study Napoleon, he was what the Kardashians were like. He branded himself with everything he did. So because I work with all of these brands today, it was a contrast between Napoleon and Martha Stewart and Ralph Lauren, blah, blah, blah. So I do these talks, and I did one in the university in, I'm having a senior moment now, John. Okay. But I've done a few of them. I'm happy to speak. And in the local ones, I do the new school and art and design.
Fantastic.
I'll be happy to do that.
All right, Freddie. Thank you again.